Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello? Anybody there?
Brian, before
You
we
hear
start,
me?
I just want to do a sound check. Can you hear us? Can you do a little test on your end?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect. Thank you. And then just don't remember to mute your phone.
Thank you.
About one more minute and we will get going this evening. We've just been green lighted by Sarah, so I'll go ahead and call the regularly scheduled meeting of Tuesday, July 11th, 2023 to order. Please join me for a flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Assembly of the City and Borough of Sitka would like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional first people of Sitka. With gratitude, we proceed on Tlingit Ani. Sarah, roll call, please.
Mayor Eisenbeis,
Present.
Mr. Mosier,
Here.
Mr. Yestad,
Here.
Mr. Christensen,
Here.
Ms. Carlson,
Here.
and Mr. Pike and Ms. Duncan are absent this evening.
Great, thank you. Any correspondence or agenda changes this evening? Seeing none, that'll bring us on to ceremonial matters. Tonight, we are going to exchange citations commemorating the 25th anniversary of the Memorandum of Understanding between the Sitka Tribe of Alaska and the City and Borough of Sitka. This follows a very nice ceremony that we had beginning at the 5 o'clock hour to commemorate this event where Gary Paxton and Stan Filler both were able to attend as well and talk about our, the original signing of the memorandum of understanding, and then how far we've come. So tonight we're going to exchange citations between myself and tribal chairman. I'll go ahead and read mine. I get to sit while I read mine. Chairman might have to stand. Citation commemorating the 25th anniversary of the Memorandum of Understanding between the Sitka Tribe of Alaska and the City and Borough of Sitka. Whereas the Memorandum of Understanding was made and entered into by and between the Sitka Tribe of Alaska and the City and Borough of Sitka on July 11th, 1998, to recognize areas of mutual concern and to support, establish a framework for cooperative relations and promote government to government communication for the benefit of the community of Sitka as a whole. And whereas because STA and CBS have responsibilities and interests in the establishment of cooperative relationships that meet the needs of both tribal and city governments. And whereas STA and the CBS believe that the Memorandum of Understanding established in 1998 was the first of its kind. And whereas when faced with challenges, the two come together, including STA being an active member of Unified Command, collaborating with the CBS during the COVID-19 pandemic, and STA's involvement in the CARES Act funding working group, which partnered with CBS to support STA's food pantry program. And whereas both governments continue to support each other and meet biannually, staff and leadership meet quarterly and attend each other's assembly and council meetings. And whereas it remains the desire of both parties to cooperate concerning the legal and political matters inherent in a government to government relationship. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Assembly of the City and Borough of Sitka does hereby celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Memorandum of Understanding between the Sitka Tribe of Alaska and the City and Borough of Sitka. Signed and sealed today, actually, July 11th, 2023. So, Chairman, if you could join us up front here. I think this guy, yeah, this guy's working too.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate this ceremony that we had, reception we had about an hour ago, and it was great to see Mr. Paxton and Mr. Filler and having a diverse crowd that participated this afternoon regarding our little reception. So thank you, and for the staff for to make this happen. On behalf of Sitka Tribe of Alaska, I want to read this proclamation. Recognition of the 25th anniversary of the Memorandum of Agreement between the City and Borough and Sitka Tribe of Alaska. Whereas a Memorandum of Understanding was made and entered into by and between the City and Borough of Sitka and Sitka Tribe of Alaska on June 11th, 1998, to recognize areas of mutual concern and support, establish a framework for cooperative relations, and promote government-to-government communications for the benefit and community of Sitka as a whole. And whereas the City and Borough of Sitka has been a significant partner with Sitka Tribe of Alaska by recognizing opportunities for consultation, partnerships, and collaborations between the two governments. Sitka Tribe of Alaska Council and the City and Borough of Sitka Assembly have met twice a year to discuss important topics for each respective government's elected officials. And whereas the past 25 years of cooperation and collaboration between Sitka Tribe of Alaska and the City and Borough of Sitka represent a positive change in the historic relationship between the tribal and municipal governments of Sitka. Whereas Sitka Tribe of Alaska and the City and Borough of Sitka have shared with other communities the values and importance of the Memorandum of Understanding receiving praise, and whereas the Sitka Tribe of Alaska and City Borough of Sitka work together through the memorandum of understanding to accomplish projects such as the improvements of the Indian River Road and the construction of the bus turnaround and parking lots across from the Peter Simpson Road. And whereas Sitka Tribe in Alaska, City and Borough of Sitka collaborate on advocacy at the federal and state level to advance shared priorities on issues including but not limited to resource protection, community development, and improved ferry service. And whereas Sitka Tribe of Alaska Social Services and the City and Borough of Sitka Utility Department work collaborate to distribute low-income home energy assistance and low-income household water assistance programs to best serve our tribal households with financial assistance in meeting with their heating and water needs. Whereas Sitka Tribe of Alaska Social Services and the City of Sitka Police Department work collaboratively in the annual National Night Out community event to build partnerships between law enforcement and the community. Also, the SPD and Social Service work together on a Child Advocacy Center, multidisciplinary team, sexual assault response team, domestic violence prevention monthly meetings. Whereas Sitka Tribe of Alaska looks forward to continued partnership with the City and Borough of Sitka using the memorandum of understanding as a framework for cooperative relations and pledges to promote government-to-government communications for the benefit of the entire community of Sitka. And now there be resolved that the Tribal Council of Sitka Tribe of Alaska does hereby and proclaim July 11th, 2023 as the 25th year anniversary of the memorandum of agreement with the City and Borough of Sitka. And, Louise Brady, our secretary, and yours truly signed this proclamation.
Chairman, I think one of your last lines put it perfectly, that the continued partnership, because that's the only place that I see this going right now. It was stated earlier that it takes two willing parties in order to make this work. You have to have the tribal council and the city assembly willing to work together to make this a success. It takes us to make it as good as it has become. So thank you to the assembly. Thank you to tribal council for continuing to grow our relationships. Chairman, we have a signed, sealed for you. Hang that well in your office. I know you got a big office up on what, the 6th floor of your new building? And now we got to smile real big for Dan and Melissa and everybody. That's one of those events that I've been looking forward to for quite a while. And now, not that our agreement and our cooperation is over, but kind of sad that the ceremony of such is over. It's a pretty big day to make 25 years on a memorandum of understanding, which, as stated earlier, we believe to be the first of its kind in Alaska and perhaps one of the first of its kind nationwide. It's definitely become a role model for other communities as well, as they've reached out to see how we cooperate with our tribal government in order to make Sitka a stronger place. Because without the tribal government of Sitka Tribe of Alaska, Sitka would be a far different place than it is today. So we thank them for their continued partnership as we move forward. So that'll bring us to special reports. Is there anyone for government to government this evening? Municipal boards, commissions, committees? Municipal departments? Anyone from the school district? Please, sir. I think the last... No, it wasn't. And I think the last time I saw you probably was in high school. So My, how the roles have switched.
There you go, huh? My name is Steve.
Welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. And my name is Steve Bradshaw, and I'm coming back to Sitka to be the interim superintendent for the year, hopefully for the year. But I just wanted to come say hello, introduce myself. I think I know most of you, but wanted to say that I know there's some questions out there in the community, and give me a couple weeks, and if I can answer any questions that you might have, please stop into my office, because I'm more than happy to talk with anybody about whatever it is that they would like to talk about it as far as the school district's concerned. So that being said, I won't take up any more of your time, because I personally love meetings, and I know each one of you do. So if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them at this time. Or if you'd like to come in and see me, I'd be more than happy to have you come see me.
Great. We appreciate the reintroduction. And if you hang out long enough, you'll have my boy coming through your school district as well.
That's
So,
you know, it's amazing how many kids I've had of former students in my career. So it's that's the fun part about the job, is seeing life go in its cycles.
it's the fun part of Sitka as well. So thank
Yeah,
you.
well, and I tell you, by the looks of this building and what you guys have done in this community, you got a lot to be proud of. I was up on the cross trails last night and couldn't believe all the work that the Trail Works has done. So Sitka holds a fondness in my heart that's unbelievable, because of the good people here, not necessarily the rain in the wintertime, but the good people in this community. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any invited students and guests this evening? Seeing none, that'll bring us to persons to be heard. This is public participation for any item off of tonight's agenda, not to exceed 3 minutes for any individual.
Good evening. My name is Richard Ween, and I'd certainly like to extend a warm welcome and return to Superintendent Steve Bradshaw. I actually remember him from his past time here, so I wish him very good luck. It's, as with most things, it's going to be an uphill trek, and you know, you're going to need stamina and some Blue Lake water to make it happen. One of the important things that I'd like to bring up tonight is the Ketchikan City Council increased their ship head tax from $9 to $11 per passenger. And it will increase, that's for 2024, and it will increase in 2025 to $12. So instead of the $6 now paid for, and this is important, for lightered passengers and private dock passengers, the tax will be $8 in 2024. So somehow Ketchikan has managed to decipher the Rubik's Cube of head tax. Now, if we charge $9, that would bring in $4.9 million if everybody disembarked. When it becomes $11, that would have give the city $6 million. And it just goes on. And I think it is very important that you know that Juneau has a $5 head tax plus a $3 port fee. And my question has continually been, why can't we do this here? And I do believe there is no particular reason other than, I'll say, resistance on the assembly and certain members within the community who are vested in that. I don't think anybody would not want to come to Sitka for a $10 bill to get off the boat. I think that it is a very reasonable thing to do. And the truth of the matter is, if we would have done it earlier, that would have been many more $1 million within our coffer. And I think that by avoiding doing something about head taxes is costing the city millions of dollars a year. And it's baffling to me. So I just hope everybody enjoys this beautiful weather. It should be around for a while longer. I broke out my barbecue. I had ribs the other night, my famous ribs, not a rib left. Thank you.
For the record, Valerie Nelson. And I know that it's not your position to answer us or have back and forth conversation. So for Dr. Ween's benefit, I will recite something that I heard years ago in that Sitka is excluded from being able to collect the head tax because Ketchikan and Juneau had enacted it and our state legislature said no more. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what my memory tells me. Thank you.
Is there anyone else under persons to be heard this evening? Any item not on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, that'll bring us to consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda consisting of item A, approve the June 13th and 27th assembly minutes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda? Sarah, on consent?
All right, on the motion to approve the consent agenda, Mayor Eisenbeis,
Yes.
Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
and Mr. Mosher.
Yes.
The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Brings us to board, commission, and committee appointments this evening. Item B.
I move to reappoint Mary Ann J. Hall to a 3-year term on the Local Emergency Planning Committee, category members of the public, and Bert Stedman to a 3-year term on the Investment Committee. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to reappoint those two individuals. Is there any public comment?
Good evening, Richard Ween. Mary Ann Hall has been a longstanding member of the LEPC, and I believe she's a retired nurse and had also been on the Sitka Community Hospital Board for many years. So that is something that's extraordinary because in retirement, she still feels, I'll say, the obligation and duty to serve. And so I'd like to certainly commend her for that. The next individual is our Senator Bert Stedman on the Investment Committee. He is also a longstanding member of the Investment Committee. And I'm very happy that he still has some interest. And I wish that he would participate very vigorously in that committee. And I've gone to many in the past. I may start to go to them in the future. Bottom line is, I wish that he would step up to this mic for a 5-minute statement about what's going on in the legislature every once in a while, because I've been coming here for a very long time and I miss his face at these meetings because I've kind of have not seen him here at all. So thank you, Senator Stedman, for stepping up, and also especially to Mary Ann Hall, who doesn't have to step up. So I think that's great. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment on the reappointments? Assembly deliberation? Sarah?
Okay, on the motion to reappoint Mary Ann Hall to a 3-year term on the Local Emergency Planning Committee and Bert Stedman to a 3-year term on the Investment Committee. Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeis,
Yes.
Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
and Ms. Carlson.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0 on item B.
Great. Unfinished business, item C, please.
I move to approve ordinance 2023-13 on second and final reading, amending Title VI Business Licenses and Regulations of the Sitka General Code by updating Chapter 6.19.030 permit required for commercial operations involving organized excursions in areas subject to this chapter.
Second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance 23-13. Is there any public comment?
Good evening. This is Richard Ween. This is the second and final reading of an issue which would allow a second sign within a business space in Harrigan Centennial Hall. One of the putative reasons for this was people, at least it was stated in the memo, people come to Sitka and the excursions are sold out, and they felt, the writer of the memo, that additional signs for additional excursions would help increase the number. It was stated at the last meeting, to refresh your memory, that it was not a sublet, meaning other businesses would be able to advertise within that single space, but rather only those individuals who have got the permit. And in some way, I feel that this does not address the issue of increasing the number of excursions. And I am still befuddled after 2 weeks as to how this will meet the stated goal of this ordinance change. And so I don't expect necessarily an answer, but I do think that if you think about it for a minute, it will not change much. So thank you.
Is there any other public comment on ordinance 23-13? Assembly deliberation? Sarah?
All right, on the motion to approve ordinance 2023-13 on second and final reading, Mayor Eisenbais,
Yes.
Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
and Mr. Mosier.
Yes.
The motion passes 5-0 on item C.
That brings us to new business item D. Tonight, the assembly will need to reconvene as the Board of Adjustments to consider a request for reconsideration of the conditional use permit for a quasi-institutional home at 3411 Halibut Point Road. Carolyn Black did file for the reconsideration. Brian, I understand you're on the line and have some guidelines for us. The only thing that I do need to say tonight, and member Yestad is aware of this, is that if the Board of Adjustment goes down the road of reconsideration, that Mr. Yestad was not a party to the original decision and therefore has nothing to reconsider. So will not be tonight's request for reconsideration should we go down that road. So thank you, Chris, for hanging out with us while we work through this process. Brian, if you're on the line and have some additional information for us on the process tonight.
Yeah, I'll be glad to. The request for reconsideration is part of our code. It is not comprehensively laid out the process, but it has enough process and procedure in it for us to proceed. So if you get back into the Board of Adjustments, those members who were in the Board of Adjustments on the original decision, their first decision is to decide whether to grant the reconsideration or deny the reconsideration. And by doing so, what that body is looking at is, I like to use an analogy with the judicial system. In the judicial system, we have motions for reconsiderations of final decisions, and the rules in there say that you can only reconsider a final decision if the requester shows satisfactorily that there has been some fact, law, or question that has been overlooked or misconceived, or if the law has changed. So that's the inquiry that you must look at as a Board of Adjustment member, is it has by the requester who's requested in writing, have they laid out some fact, some law, or some question that has been overlooked or misconceived in the original decision, or has the law changed since the original decision? Only then can you find that. If you can find that, then do you open it up for reconsideration? If you decide not to, it's all over with. If you decide to reopen it up, then you can deliberate on whether or not that there is something that makes you want to either change your decision entirely or modify it because of what was presented by the requester for reconsideration. Now, under the circumstances of deciding whether to go under, to even hear the reconsideration request, that is not, we don't get another bite of the apple here. We look at this solely on the information presented by the requester, and you make your decision on that. If you decided to reconsider, you could then ask for more argument. And the code is specific on that, only to ask for more argument on the specific issues that reopen this up to. Otherwise, this whole question is heard on the evidence that was originally presented at the appeal on this case. So that's a brief outline. I wanted to make sure that everyone understood that a reconsideration is not get another bite at the apple, but the reconsideration is to look to see, hey, did we overlook something, a fact, a law, a question, or has the law changed since then? And if they have brought something up that you feel that has happened, then you can reconsider it, and only then can you reconsider it. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Brian. At this point, I do believe the assembly needs to convene as the Board of Adjustment. If I could have a motion, please.
I move to convene as a Board of Adjustment.
Second.
Sarah, on convening as a Board of Adjustment.
Ms. Carlson? Here. Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeit?
Yes.
Mr. Christensen?
Yes.
And Ms. Carlson, would you like to clarify?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm clarifying the yes.
Thank you. We are now convened as the Board of Adjustment. Remember, we are a quasi judicial body. If anyone has had any ex parte contact that they believe at this point that disqualifies them from the proceedings, if you could let me know. Thank you. The next step, we as the assembly can have some deliberation and discussion if we like, and then there is a couple motions which can head us down the next path. If anyone has any discussion, Tor?
I have more of a question. So we look at the information that was in our packet. Is this something we would just vote on? And if we vote yes or if we vote to reconsider it, then we would possibly open it up for public comment, or is there that's more a question for Sarah, I guess.
That is correct. So if the request for reconsideration is denied, that does end the proceedings this evening.
Okay.
If it is granted, the Board of Adjustment has the opportunity to call for argument. However, that does not necessarily include public comment, but there are routes that we could go in order to incorporate that into our process tonight. There are also routes where we could do this in executive session if the Board of Adjustment feels necessary. So that would be several steps down the road.
Then I guess in my mind, having read the packet here and as I say, I don't think anything's changed in the last month. And so I would argue that we should deny the request just because, like I said, nothing's changed in my mind.
Kevin?
I would agree with that.
JJ?
It was an interesting display of use of terms to, if it's a group housing, I'm speaking of the complaint group housing versus like residential therapy. And I don't see any real depth to that argument that was given as the potential for what we'd be deciding on reconsideration tonight. So I think there's nothing here to reconsider.
Thank you. Unless there's anything further, a motion is in order.
Okay. I move to deny the request for reconsideration.
Second.
Sarah on the motion to deny the request.
Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeiß,
Yes.
Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. Christensen.
Yes.
The motion to deny the request passes 4-0.
Thank you. That does end the Board of Adjustments proceedings this evening. Motion to reconvene, please.
I move to reconvene.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you to the Board of Adjustment. We are now reconvened as assembly in regular session. Chris, you're back at it. Having finished item D, that will bring us to item E this evening.
I move to approve ordinance 2023-14 on first reading, amending Title 4 Revenue and Finance of the Sitka General Code by updating Chapter 4.09 Sales Tax.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance 23-14. John, you have an introduction on this item?
I do have a very brief introduction. As you remember, this seasonal sales tax was put in place with a constraint on it that once the sufficient revenue was earned to pay off the debt service on the school bonds, that the sales tax would sunset. And with the projections that has sunsetted or was expected to sunset on June 30th. So as of that effective date, the sales tax has gone away. And this is the ordinance to remove that section from code to get in alignment with the original ballot.
Great, thank you. Is there any public comment on ordinance 23-14?
Richard Ween, I wish there was a memo in the packet related to this. One of the interesting things that I noticed are all the exemptions were removed. And one of the things I wanted to hear was why in this new ordinance are the exemptions removed, and how does that relate to the fiscal standing for the future of the, for example, the next item. And that was a mystery. I don't like mystery in policy. So I was wondering if somebody could address that at the appropriate time, why the exemptions were taken out. It just wasn't clear to me, speaking as a citizen and for a friend.
Is there any other public comment on ordinance 23-14?
Keith Brady. I am happy to see this come forward. This is after when I first heard that the sales tax was going to expire due to the PAC being paid off. I thought, well, why not reinstitute some type of summer tax really to help the city budget? And I think this works well. The one thing though that would change is to add something for the school district, not just
Sir, I think you're
infrastructure.
on the next item.
Oh, crap, I'm
We're
so
on
sorry.
item E at this point.
You're on D. Well, then I'll come back.
Please, thank you. Anyone else on ordinance 23-14? Assembly deliberation?
I just
Sure.
had a comment that considering the next item, this might be the shortest lived change to the, well, I mean, I guess it'd be a few months, but yeah, this is just housekeeping.
Further assembly deliberation? Sarah?
All right, on the motion to approve ordinance 2023-14 on first reading, Mayor Eisenbais,
Yes.
Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
and Ms. Carlson.
Yes.
The motion passes 5-0 on first reading.
Thank you. Brings us to item F.
I move to approve ordinance 2023-15 on first reading, proposing to amend Title IV Revenue and Finance, Chapter 4.09 Sales Tax of the Sitka General Code by adding a seasonal sales tax increase of 1 additional percent point in Section 4.09.010 levy of sales tax and adding Section 4.09.120 exemption from seasonal sales tax increase and submitting the question of such an amendment to the qualified voters at the regular election of October 3rd, 2023.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. I will hold myself to a brief introduction as well. Ideally, this ordinance would have come forward while we still had the sales tax in place. Our estimates became a little skewed once the state actually ponied up their 70%, causing the sales tax to sunset a little bit earlier. But the reason I was a co-sponsor of this to bring this forward is for probably 8 of my last 9 years, I've been fighting for a mechanism to fund school building maintenance and replacement. Right now, we have a whopping $0 saved up for our aging school infrastructure. And obviously, that's not going to cut it. We do need to provide top quality buildings for our kids. And I do believe that state support on new school construction or major rehab is going to be very diminished in the near future. So this gives the voters an opportunity to decide how they might like to pay for these buildings. I think it's an opportune mechanism. However, I do understand the ramifications on locals of adding back in a percentage of sales tax. So I think that's what the voters are going to have to weigh as we go forward here. Kevin, did you have anything additional?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Summed it up well.
Is there any public comment on ordinance 23-15?
Good evening, this is Richard Ween. This is an ordinance to revive the sales tax that just sunsetted. One of the important things here is that within the memo, it says that the district and municipality are unprepared to fund any major emergency repairs to buildings requiring without requiring appropriation from the general fund. The word unprepared is very revealing in that it seems like clearly there's not enough money to do these things. And based on former estimates on what is needed for the school district, I think that $1.8 million certainly can go a long way if those revenues continue. But I also, now speaking as a tax-paying citizen, during the summer season, again, and I brought this up in the past about having a Hawaiian tradition, which is Kaima Aina, which means that residents of Sitka, if, for example, if they show their driver's license, would be exempt from that 1%. I mean, everybody thinks 1% is nothing, but when you add 1% here, 3% here, 8% there, all of this adds up. And though people may appear to be used to paying this, again, it is just another straw on a camel's back. And I think we need to think more creatively, combining Baranoff population with potentially other schools. And that's been broached by the assembly and the school district previously. So, but then again, there's never a tax that a government didn't like. So I know you're going to go for it. But for every action, there is an equal and potentially opposite reaction, no matter how good your intention is. But thank you very much.
Item F.
I apologize for jumping the gun there. I support this. Like I said before, this
If you
is
could
something
state
that
your
I
name for the
thought,
record,
Keith
please.
Brady, again. Something that I do support, and I think that it also helps that all the tourism that we're having and continues to increase just helps out with funding the needs of our city, especially our school district. And like I said, the only change that I would make is somehow that it goes into maybe a portion of it with discussion of the school district going to help fund teachers, because we keep losing positions. And it keeps making it harder and harder for the teachers to do their jobs with less and less. That's all I ask. Thank you.
Blossom Teal Olson, 715 Sawmill Creek Road. Thank you. I wanted to speak to this this evening, and I just wanted to thank the Assembly for putting this on the table. I support opening up this discussion to the voters. So whatever Sitka decides, I support that definitely, because we need to have this discussion to plan for the future, most especially for our children who we want to remain here in Sitka. So thank you again for having this very important conversation, and again to provide the voters of Sitka this discussion to decide on together. Thank you.
Is there anyone else on ordinance 23-15? The button on the very bottom.
Okay.
There you are.
got it.
Thank you.
Shirley Robards, a 65-year resident of Sitka. You know, all the people that come into my store and saying, oh, wow, 1%. I said, well, don't feel too good about it, because I think the state's going to put a 2% on. And they said, oh, they won't. No, they won't. They haven't had it for years. And then you come out 6 days later, after the 1st of July, and it's all over. So possibly it's going to come back. I don't understand it. I just don't understand it. You're supposed to be saying that the reason you did it was because you have extra money. Then all of a sudden you need another %. I don't know. I just don't know. I've talked to a lot of people. Yeah, go ahead and put it on the voting thing. I don't think you're going to win though. Thank you.
Anyone else this evening on ordinance 23-15? Back to the assembly for deliberation. Kevin, if you wanted to go, and then I'll follow up.
Yes, sir. Yeah, so Steve and I have been working on this for several months. Our original intention or our hope was that this was going to, we believe that the tax would expire right around election time, so it would be a smoother transition. Yes, this is adding a tax, as in there is no longer that tax, but we have done the extra 1% during the summer months for 20 years or so. We have, as Stephen said, we have to have a funding mechanism for our schools. I would like to keep it for the school buildings, but this will not in and of itself, it may not, the dollars may not necessarily pay for repairs, but it will possibly pay on bond debt that we would get in the future to repair buildings or replace buildings. And I also would like to remind the public that's listening that in order for the city to take on any other bonds, that would also have to go to a vote. So this is basically continuing to save for our future, for our children, because it's extremely important, and we don't have a mechanism. So things are going to start breaking, and they already are. So we need to try to find a mechanism to take care of our school buildings. And also, this is, if it passes this meeting and then the next, it will be placed on the ballot. So the public will have to decide. It'll be a choice that we get to make. That's what I have to say for now.
Thank you. As I stated earlier, this is one of the overriding things that I've had on my mind for multiple years during my tenure on the assembly, that we have not had a way to fund school building replacement. I mentioned it to multiple administrators, and so far yet we have not come up with a plan in order to do as such. This is a tax. This will affect our local citizens. However, this is status quo for many. Most people don't remember. There's quite a few people in town who don't remember the sales tax not jumping up in the summertime. With the additional visitation in the summer, it does allow us to capture a larger amount of revenue. This ordinance, if placed in front of the voters, addresses multiple actions within our strategic plan, namely action item 4.1. And then we could also address item 4.2 and 4.3, potentially even addressing item 1.1 as time goes forward. So I believe that this action is within line with our strategic plan as well. On that, I don't actually this. I also think that this is a key opportunity for the municipality and the school district to work together if this passes, in order to combine building maintenance. I think it's a little concerning that our building maintenances are separate, even though it's our buildings, and that we're not 100% aware of all the upcoming deferred maintenance issues that are within those buildings. And that's a little bit concerning to me. So I believe that this is a perfect jump off point for us to combine building maintenance, get a little bit of workload burden off of the school district, while streamlining the process through some asset management, maybe. For Ron, who's sitting in the back, that will allow a smoother process and a more cost-effective process as we go forward. If this does pass tonight and on the next reading, I'm not going to be an advocate for or against this tax. I find myself in the position simply to bring it forward to the voters, and I want the citizens of Sitka to take ownership and lead on this. If there are interest groups that feel strongly either way, I encourage them to get out and inform people as to the vote. I don't find it to be my role to advocate on a ballot issue like this. So if this passes, you won't hear me saying much about it besides answering some questions on why I brought it forward. So Tor, I believe you had something as well. Thank you.
It's kind of funny because I called Kevin about a different plan a little while back. And if I hadn't been sidelined by EMS symposiums and other things, I probably would have had a competing one out there for you. So a couple of thoughts. I think, I've always kind of half joked that we should raise it to 7 or 8% in the summer and not have a sales tax in the winter. And that, I think we might get in some legal issues with that, but I still think that it's something that we could think about. Just because the vast majority is in the summer anyway. But in general, I'm in favor of this. I kind of made some notes here when I was reading through it, that it strikes me that I don't know if we want to think about setting a split between school infrastructure and infrastructure in general. I don't know if you guys thought about that, but like if we said 70% goes towards school infrastructure and 30% towards roads and the like. That might be worth thinking about. If you guys think I'm way off base, that's fine. But just that we've got a lot of other things. So one note that, somebody mentioned that we should try and put some towards teachers. Unfortunately, the cap prevents us from doing that. We're already at the cap. And so we can't give the school district more money for teachers. The state will take away $1 for every dollar we give them over the cap. So that is, we kind of have a love-hate relationship with the cap, and that it tells us what our amount is, and then we're not allowed to give any more. But what is nice with this, that if we can build up the fund so that when it comes time for major things, we're not borrowing money, or at least not as much. That's really nice, not to have to pay interest. And I know that we talked about similar things with the harbors, and had we raised harbor rates 25 years ago, like we were talking about, we wouldn't have had to borrow quite so much. So anyway, I can support this as is. I at least want to hear a little bit if people think about maybe splitting it with regular infrastructure, but that's too complicated. I understand.
JJ?
To add to the discussion, I'd just like to read the ballot proposition so the people on the radio or in the audience that don't have a packet in front of them will know exactly what we're talking about, that they will be voting on in October. It's a yes and no question that reads, shall the Sitka General Code be amended to adopt a seasonal sales tax increase starting in 2024 of a 1 additional percentage point from 5 cents to 6 cents from April 1st through September 30th of each year, and dedicate the revenue generated to fund either directly or by paying debt service on the maintenance, repair, replacement, and or construction of school building infrastructure. Thank you.
Chris?
I think in general, I do really like this. I really like the part that it's going out to the people. So, and just in that alone, I definitely support it, because we're just putting it to the people and they get to make the final decision. I think I know the answer to this, but I guess I want to ask the sponsors for clarity. This will be a fund that is managed and accessed by the city alone for this infrastructure, right?
By alone, you mean the school board?
The school board district they can't touch it. Right?
Correct. It will be under the assembly's purview to allocate funds.
All right. Yeah. I guess I say that because I do only want this going towards the infrastructure. I don't want to see it going into their operating budget. I think this is smart though, just like Tor was mentioning the harbors, here we are struggling with trying to pay for our new harbors. We know that our schools are aging. This is saving for our future. Here, I think there was an example of the heat pumps going out. Well, that was 600,000 that came out of the general fund, where if this was in place, it would come out of this fund that there's already money in, and it's going strictly towards infrastructure. So yeah, I definitely support this and happy to see it move forward.
Thank you. I think we answered your one question, Tor. You had a question on a split between 70-30 roads or other municipal infrastructure. I know John would very much like that. It does give another mechanism to fund city buildings. However, I believe it would be less effective at the ballot box. I also think that roads have a separate mechanism to fund right now. We do have money going into roads where we have zero money going forward to schools. So that was our deliberation and our process to get where we were at. Not saying motions couldn't be made, but just informing on the question.
A question for you, John. I'm just thinking about how this would really formalize our relationship with the school district in regards to the buildings. Do we have a lease agreement or a memorandum of understanding or some sort of document with them? Or perhaps, yeah.
Not that I'm aware of as far as buildings and infrastructure go. I could be wrong on that, but kind of catching me off guard. That's just off the top of my head. I don't believe so. The only really agreement we have in place is the maintenance funding that we provide through the budget every year, and then our capital plan. So when we develop our capital plan and that comes forward for approval, there are times when school building projects may be brought forward. I think this source of funding could be an opportunity to almost create a parallel type capital program where we can work on some school initiatives on top of our normal capital program.
Yeah, thank you. Because with the bond debt, it was kind of very clear how that would work. And it was just the finance people just here. It's a bit more of risk assessment and asset management. And there's probably some rubric. So a bit more collaboration needed, not exactly related to the ballot proposition, but part of our overall discussion on how to make this work well. And that's how I think about things. So.
Very much agreed. Chris?
I guess I do kind of have another question that kind of goes to what Tor was saying. Let's just hypothetically say this does very well for quite a few years and this fund gets built up, to a pretty good amount. What is, if the assembly sometime down the road, what would the mechanism be if we wanted to split this in the future? Is there such a thing? Does it have to go back out to the voters to say, 70-30, 50-50 split?
That would be my understanding. I may be wrong and Melissa could correct me, but that would be my understanding.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Any type of changes like this have to go to the voters. So I wanted to address, if I can, also the questions about splitting it. I do appreciate the desire to do that. There have been people who were interested in possibly, getting their organization or their plans a portion of this, and we've thought about this and gone back and forth, and I think what Steve and I have kind of came up with is that, as he said, to try to get this passed, it doesn't have, the school buildings don't have a dedicated revenue stream. It's simple. It's something you can say, okay, this 1% will go all to that. And it also, once you start dividing, this is just my personal opinion. Once you start dividing it up, then it becomes less and less impactful. And we want something, if you do all to the school buildings, then like you said, the $600,000 or things like that. I mean, we have some place to pull that from. And so then when we're doing that, that's less money we're pulling from something that we could use towards roads and this and that. And it's not that I don't want or value the concerns, like say the split or other split that people have personally asked me for. It's not that I don't think they're valuable. It's just that I want to keep it clean, simple, 1% of the school buildings. And I also forgot to mention thank you to the staff, because the staff is really the ones upon our request that helped us get this all put together. And so I just want to give due credit for that. That's all I have to say.
Sure.
Yeah, I can count to 4. I'm not going to make a motion. But no, that's fine. And yeah, I mean, like I say, I had some other thoughts, but this is probably cleaner. And I fully appreciate the KISS principle of, having a split like that makes it more complicated. So, and at the end of the day, if this does completely cover either the bonds or just flat out purchasing school buildings,
that's going to mean more revenue in the city regular general fund that we wouldn't have had to divert. So like that 600,000, what I forget what the exact, I don't think we haven't heard yet exactly how much we spent on the heat pumps yet, but roughly that. So that's fine.
Anything further from the assembly? Sarah?
Right, on the motion to approve ordinance 2023-15 on first reading, Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeiß,
Yes.
Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
and Mr. Christensen.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0 on first reading.
Thank you. It is the top of the hour. Does the assembly desire a break before they're jumping up? We'll take a break and please be seated when you're ready to continue. All right, the assembly is seated. We will go on to item G, our last item of business this evening.
Oh, I move to approve ordinance 2023-16 on first reading and proposing to amend Article 2, the Assembly, Section 2.1 prohibition, 2.11, excuse me, prohibitions of the Home Rule Charter of the City and Borough of Sitka by permitting school board members to hold municipal employment other than with the school district during the term of office and the year after vacating office, and submitting the question of such an amendment to the qualified voters at a regular election on October 3, 2023.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Kevin, as Tim is not here, do you have an introduction for this?
Sure. Well, it's really simple. School board or employee, according to the current interpretation of code, people who are employed by the school district can be elected and serve on the Sitka Assembly, but city and borough, people who are employed by the city and borough of Sitka cannot serve on the school board. We've had a lot of difficulty filling those spots, and people who work for the city have expressed interest in the past of serving. So we want to give the voters a chance to change that. And then I'll get into the rest.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on ordinance 23-16?
Good evening, Richard Ween. This is an interesting change that people wish to make. It's to allow municipal employees to serve on the school board. One of the putative reasons is that it will increase the pool for people to join the school board because of the number of city employees. I'm just wondering if there is somebody they have in mind who wishes to join that initiated this, or is it just a flash of brilliance in wanting to change things? But one of the things that's very interesting is I really don't see any difference between the assembly and the school board. I think conflict of interest or seeming real or imagined conflict of interest is present throughout. If you just look at all your relationships that you have individually here and also at the school district. So I just say get rid of all of it and let everybody do whatever they want, because it's a total mind meld here. And so it's sometimes hard to know the difference between the assembly and the school board when I do sit here. And part of it has to do with the lack of diversity of opinion. And I think that is a problem. What's happening here is you're taking a municipal employee. And again, to me, I understand why these rules are in place due to potential conflicts of interest. We have very weak conflict of interest rules here in the city. And so, I know this is going to pass, and it'll be interesting to see who, steps in out of the line to join the district board. However, like I said, everyone virtually here on the assembly has a school board link, and so I have difficulty telling the difference. So good luck for all those municipal employees who want to go and serve, and I will cheer them on. The other thing is that I hope people read the legal opinion. And they had a legal opinion, and Brian Hansen Esquire, when he was asked previously, gave an unqualified no, because if you look at the laws and definitions, this is elected officials are school board members. So anyway, do your best to do your duty. Thank you.
Blossom Teal Olson, 715 Sawmill Creek Road. I want to state that my appreciation for the Assembly for bringing this to the voters of Sitka. As my previous experience on the Sitka School Board, it is extremely hard to find individuals to serve on the board for many various different reasons. There were times when I was up late calling people, pitching, have you ever thought about running for office? So I support this endeavor of finding different ways to fill the need within our city. I do want to highlight, this is part of, I feel it's opening a window when there's a couple doors closed. I do want to highlight that the Sitka School Board is one of the very few school boards within Alaska that do not have any compensation. We've lost that compensation way back in, I think, way before 2015. With the present budget the way it is and how the legislature is handling our budget needs within the state, I find it very hard to bring forth the need to compensate the people on the board. And I don't think they would want to bring up that conversation at this time. But I do want to advocate that it is a huge detriment within the city, because first and foremost, it stops equity, because you have to be of a certain type of demographic that can supply your time. And it is like a part-time job. You, as you know, you get your emails, you have to be on top of every different topic. And that is time. And when it's not compensated, a lot of people cannot afford that. So I do want to bring that issue up. I hope in the future it can be ratified to honor the time that the school board spends tackling all of the situations that they tackle. And thank you again. Again, thank you for bringing this up. I think this will help the situation in filling those necessary spots. Thank you.
Anyone else on ordinance 23-16? Kevin, did you have anything further, or?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll just read some of the memo. It's fairly short. According to Sitka Home Rule Charter 2.11a, Sitka residents who are currently employed by the city and borough of Sitka may not serve on the Sitka School Board. The actual language of the section states, no elected municipal officer shall hold any other elective public office, municipal office, or municipal employment during his or her term. According to legal opinion rendered by municipal attorney Brian Hansen on 8/1/22, review of comparable Alaska statutes and case law support the interpretation that a school board member is an elected municipal officer within the meaning of the above referenced charter section. To our knowledge, there has been no legal challenge to this. We as sponsors, Mr. Pike and I, agree with this interpretation. The charter does not explain the reasoning why municipal employees may not serve on the school board. While we understand the need for elected officials to not be employed by the organizations which they have authority over, we do believe that we need to consider changing the charter to allow municipal employees to serve on the school board. To be clear, we do not believe Sitka School District employees should be allowed to serve on the school board, just as municipal employees should not be allowed to serve on the assembly. In order to amend the charter, this decision must go to a public vote, which we're proposing be had. That's basically the entire memo. I normally don't like responding sometimes to certain comments, but I do want to state that this was not done for any one person. It's been done. Mr. Pike and I have been looking into this because it's very difficult to find people to serve on the school board. And there have been people in the past who, employees of the municipality who expressed an interest. As far as the, conflict, it's hard. It's been a learning experience for me being on the assembly, because every time something comes up, I mean, it's really hard to find something you're not connected to. The city had to negotiate a lease with my employer, and I was still not really allowed to be out of that. And so you have to put yourself in this position and try your best to be objective, which I think most people in SICA do. I just think that this is something worth giving the voters a chance to choose. We need some people who are interested in serving, and Blossom brought up a good point about the compensation. That's kind of a different subject, but this is an attempt to stab at trying to help get more people on the school board.
Yeah, so I remember this coming up, it was about 6-8 months ago, maybe it's more than that. But anyway, somebody who worked in the city, and I honestly didn't know about this until that did. And to me, it makes no sense to preclude city employees from school district being on the school board. Both, I don't really see a conflict there because they don't vote on the budget. And then also because we've said, a number of people said it's hard to get good people to run for the school board. And the city, that's a lot of people, especially when you throw family members in. And well-qualified, many of them very well educated, and why wouldn't we want people like that on our school board? I know that it's state law to allow school district employees to be on the assembly, and that's because they realize that especially some of these small towns out in the bush, there wouldn't be a city council or an assembly if people from the schools couldn't be on it. And this is similar. I mean, you're taking a large group of very qualified, dedicated people and precluding them from doing this, but I can't see any, and so I'm enthusiastically supporting this. And I still am puzzled why it's there in the first place.
Chris?
Yeah, I mean, just in reading this, it's something I can definitely support. I kept trying to think of different conflict of interest scenarios, and I really couldn't come up with anything that was super detrimental. I mean, parents with kids in the school district might be more of a conflict of interest for being on the school board rather than a municipal employee. So yeah, this is definitely something I support, and yeah, have no problem with sending it on to the people to vote on.
JJ?
Since this vote tonight is just approving it to go to vote for the people, like, absolutely. This is just kind of paperwork, in my opinion.
And 99% of the time, I'm in support of putting a ballot forward in front of the citizens. The only reason that I would vote against it is if it was very egregious or just plain harmful to the community. And I don't feel that this assembly would put something like that forward. So I'm always in favor of giving the public a chance, just for the sponsors' benefit. If they do want to advocate for or against, as a person reading the wording for the ballot proposition, I had to read it a couple times just because it reads a little funky at the end to me with holding office, but you're talking about employment. So that might be a little bit of a hurdle to overcome while someone is in the polling booth. But yeah, thank you for bringing something forward to head to the voters. Anything further from the assembly? Sarah?
Right, on the motion to approve ordinance 2023-16 on first reading, Mr. Christensen?
Yes.
Ms. Carlson?
Yes.
Mr. Yestad?
Yes.
Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
And Mayor Eisenbais?
Yes.
The motion passes 5-0 on first reading.
Thank you. That'll bring us to persons to be heard this evening. This is public participation for any item on or off tonight's agenda, not to exceed 3 minutes.
Good evening, Richard Ween. I do happen to agree with Teal. I'm sorry she just walked out of the room, that I think it's all fair in love and war, and that there should be some compensation for school board members. It is a part-time job, and I think that it's a good idea which needs to be considered. Something I forgot to say in the first persons to be heard, with that 25th anniversary of the MOU between the city and the tribe. I like mathematics, so I created a little mathematic formula here, in that the numerator is 25 and the denominator is 10,000. So you can do the math and figure out the meaning of that. There are a couple of things I'd like to bring up, and part of what I would like to bring up, I'm going to call the memory hole. I think that it is part of the job of the assembly to inform the public as to various issues, and also give status reports. Failure to give status reports, I believe, is a breach of something. For example, we have Harbor Point. That's at a stop. That is a lease which we gave, which represented revenue flows for us. And we don't know what's going on there. And, you know, when will it be solved? Another issue is, well, the leaking landfill down at Sawmill Creek. I know that money had been allocated for it, and I'd certainly like to know what the status of the leaky landfill. It sounds like a murder mystery, the murder at the leaky landfill. The other thing is, again, and I'll keep bringing it up, the road to Catlian. This is a serious issue. I hear reports all the time of whether it's even going to get done. It's a $40–50 million project, and it already cost lives and people have been injured. And I think we need to have some ability to know what is going on. I know it's other people's money, and who really gives a care. Another aspect are the water sales. And please go over what the agreement was for the water sales, because the people who got the assembly, who gave them the water sales, they have to sell a certain amount of water within that contract time, plus they have to put in infrastructure. And where that becomes important is the haul out is going to be in the same proximate area. And I think that this needs to be brought up before the people. Please and thank you, with peanut butter on top.
Is there anyone else for persons to be heard this evening?
Hi there, my name is Audrey Hudson, and I am still somewhat new to Sitka, but I do enjoy attending these meetings. The meeting this evening was quite interesting. I found myself coming from different points of view. I have different seats within the community where I'm on the board of directors for the Tongass Federal Credit Union, also with the board of commissioners with Baranof Island Housing Authority. And I'm really looking to just kind of dip my head into the events and the goings on with Sitka, and I'm excited for this. My first thought on ordinance number 2023-15 for the sales tax, I think the idea from Dr. Ween over here was excellent in regards to possibly having a Kamaina rate for the locals. And in regards to ordinance number 2023-16, I think it's a great idea. Actually, at one time, I agree with Tor in regards to municipal employees serving on school boards and the shortage of people in the community that want to sit on the school board in rural Alaska. And so I'm kind of surprised that this is actually an ordinance. And it's a way for the municipal government and the school district to kind of bridge a gap. And I know that Sitka right now is kind of going through a tough time with the school district and the cutting of funds from the state of Alaska. And so maybe this will be a mode of communication where things can happen in partnership and with certain people from the municipal government sitting in those seats. It's possibly, I think it's a good thing. But that's kind of my take on these two items this evening. Thank you.
Anyone else for persons to be heard this evening? That'll bring us to reports. I have no report this evening. It seems like we just met like 2 days ago. So, John?
I do have one report. I'll try to make it as quick as possible because there's a lot of information here. We're going to be talking taxis for quite a while, and I've been working on basically an overhaul to our taxi ordinance and calling it a commercial passenger vehicle ordinance. It's, like I said, it's been in the works for a bit. Went to police and fire with a draft version of it to give to folks in attendance. We reached out to the providers in town and asked them for their input, and we'll have multiple meetings on this to discuss. I will say it wasn't a pleasant meeting, but one of the things that did pop up is, why are we doing this? Everything works fine. And I was told or I hear daily that it's not working fine. And I'd like to point out, because I think this is very important, I want to read this before I get to the final information here. If you look at last Friday's paper, July 7th, a letter to the editor from somebody who doesn't live in Sitka, but an Alaskan, says, "Dear editor, I'm one of a group of friends who traditionally visit Sitka each summer. We spend 5 days enjoying the gorgeous scenery, the friendly shops, and entertaining music festival. As we ended this year's trip last week, we agreed that Sitka is a special place. However, this year's reunion was tinged with a touch of annoyance because our rides to and from the airport, I'll call these experiences a tale of two taxis. When two of us arrived at the airport midday, there was no taxi available for a ride to town. As we phoned the list of taxis, all we heard was the message, 'This mailbox is full.' We stood stranded outside the arrival area. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a stranger asked us if we were looking for a ride. He introduced himself as a summer resident willing to help out. We accepted his offer of a short ride to our lodging. In appreciation, we gave him a $20 bill, not because he asked for it, but because we were grateful for his kindness. The experience was a reminder of old-fashioned Alaskan neighborliness. When it was time to leave on the early morning flight, we made a reservation with a local shuttle service. We were picked up on time and driven the short distance back to the airport. The fee for this service was $21 per person. The total cost of this ride was a whopping $105. We were dismayed at the price and, needless to say, did not feel that a tip was appropriate. As I consider these two rides, it seems to me that there's a hidden cost to the second ride. I am left with several questions. What are kindness and hospitality worth? What is the effect of price gouging? How does Sitka want to be remembered by its visitors? So I wanted to read that as, why are we doing this? This is exactly why we're doing this. I get this complaint very, very, very regularly. Also, we're seeing that a new sector, shuttles, are unregulated. There's nowhere that addresses them in our code, and that's something that could be a potential liability. We need to get that at least explored and see where we need to go with this. And something we've heard is we need ride share here. We need Uber, we need Lyft, and whoever, other ride share services. Well, after that meeting and even slightly before it, there's nothing I can find in our code that prevents Uber and Lyft from being here. And as some of you may have seen or heard already, Uber and Lyft are now in Sitka. There are active drivers. I've seen them at the airport. You can see the cars now on the app. There's a few of them, but they do exist now in Sitka. So I don't believe we do have any code that prevents that. So that's a long way of getting around to next Tuesday, July 18th at 6 p.m. in the auditorium here at Harrigan Hall. We are going to have a town hall on this commercial passenger vehicle ordinance where we'd like providers and other concerned individuals to come out and give us some input on what their needs are and how this change in ordinance could help. What's the good, what's the bad? And if you reach out to city offices, I can provide at least our rough draft of what it looks like now. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. I don't believe you're still on the line, but I'd give you an opportunity for a report if you are.
I am on the line, but I have no report. Thank you.
Thank you for staying with us. No report, understood. Liaison representatives? Seeing none. Please, JJ, sorry.
The Tourism Task Force meets tomorrow, so I'll have a more in-depth report after that.
Sarah, clerk's report.
I actually have a lot. I'll go over our vacancy list first. The Animal Hearing Board, Health Needs and Human Services, the Investment Committee, Local Emergency Planning Committee, Parks and Rec, and the Tree and Landscape Committee. So if folks are interested in serving on those commissions, or they'd like to know more information, they can contact our office. I am hosting a couple of sessions this week on running for local office. Both sessions, the same material will be covered in both sessions. The first one is Thursday night at 6 in meeting room 5. And then the second one is on Saturday morning at 10. And really, I'm just there to answer questions and give folks an overview of what the candidate filing process looks like. The candidate filing process opens on Monday and runs through Friday, August 4th. Our municipal election is October 3rd. So we have 3 assembly member seats to be filled, 2 3-year terms, 1 1-year term. And then on the school board, we have 3 seats to be filled, a 2-year term and a 1 2-year term. So lots coming up.
Thank you, Sarah. Any other reports this evening? Seeing none, that would bring us to adjournment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all for your time this evening. We are adjourned.